Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm going to try to do more of these lives. I'm going live this Friday with Waj. If you saw our other one, be sure to check out that one. I think we are going live um, like midday on Friday. But just, a lot to talk about. Sorry, I haven't had a chance to do one of these recently. I was in DC again. I don't know if you saw the Instagram I did on it, but it was so disturbing being there when Congress was on their vacation. It was the day that Trump put out his Truth Social post about basically starting a nuclear war or annihilating, um, the entire country. And I happened to be watching the Capitol, the Congress video they had as part of their tour, talking about the separation of powers and why Congress got the power to declare war because they wanted the people to have a debate and decide it. The juxtaposition of that and then Johnson, like, not even showing up, not even calling people, is so disturbing. Another really disturbing thing about that, and then we'll get into the California governor's race in Swalwell, is the tour actually doesn't mention anything about January 6th. Which it should. It talks about the other times that the Capitol was attacked. So is that just a matter of it needs to be changed? I hope so, because that's how we also carry out our history, is by those really basic things like the Capitol tour on the tour ground. Is not going to talk about January 6th. Okay, getting into the California's governor's race. So I don't know if you guys know, but I'm a delegate to the California Democratic Party. There's about 2,000 elected Democrats or appointed Democrats. This is not um like political class type people. It's like everyday people. You, you can actually try to become a delegate in whichever state you're in. I would really encourage that, especially if you're in a red state, because you can help shape the candidates in your local races and in your statewide races, because you get to decide which candidates get endorsed by the California Democratic Party. And you get a chance to talk to these candidates well before the endorsement and ask them the questions. My number one question I asked everybody who was trying to get my vote was, are you taking any PAC money? Because at the end of the day, this has now become my most important question. If you take money, you're most likely beholden to whoever is giving you money. And if you're not taking money, you're more likely to listen to your voters. And a lot of candidates in California actually take money from unions, which is usually very good. But interestingly, there's a little bit of a friction between unions and our power system. It's a little bit of a separate conversation, but I would much rather people take money from unions than other type of corporate interests. But anyway, so we're at our San Francisco Democratic Convention at the end of February. And as you know, we did not endorse anybody for our governor's race because of so many people who were running. Swalwell did receive most votes, but it was, I think, just 20% or something like that. The candidate who received a lot but really hasn't been heard about since then is Betty Yee. She was a former controller from the state of California, and she did the work of getting to know the delegates. She honestly has been campaigning for years, going and visiting all up and down the state of California. That has not at all translated to the public. My number one criticism about how the California Democratic Party is handling this on a big picture, and then I'll talk about Swalwell in particular, is Rusty Hicks, who's our party chair, very much an establishment party chair. But he has, supposedly, there's news reports talked about trying to encourage people with low polling to drop out. But we have not even had a debate. And this is what has been bothering me the most. With so many candidates, voters and people in California deserved a lot of debates, because this really shouldn't be a popularity contest. Right now, frankly, all of that polling is based on name recognition. You have Tom Steyer, who is a billionaire, who has spent so much money in ads. Plus, he's actually run for president before, so a lot of people know his name. Katie Porter, of course, a lot of people know her name because she was a congresswoman. She also just ran for Senate against Adam Schiff and lost. So a lot of people know her name too. So it's not a surprise that they were in the top two. And then you enter Swalwell, who was a very well known congressman, often spoke up against Trump. So you had the top three polling were all on name recognition. And I don't believe that's a good way to elect candidates. I would have liked to have heard a debate among the candidates about what they want to do about our state because frankly, I don't want a governor who's just using the state of California as a stepping stool to their next job. Like, can you just try to do the job well in California? So, I thought Rusty Hicks should have, instead of trying to get people polling low to drop out, to try to get more debates. There's nothing wrong to have gotten like 8 debates. Is there anything wrong to have heard from the candidates more? I mean, the more candidates you have, the more debates you should have had. And during those debates, as we see with the presidential debates, you see candidates flounder or excel. And that is in itself its own weeding process. But that weeding process is on more than just name recognition. It's actually about a voter's feeling about the debate. It brings out the policy pros and cons of that candidate. So we are going to have some debates. I think April 22nd, there's a Zoom debate. April 24th is kind of the first live debate. USC was supposed to have a debate, but there was a polling issue, or there was really a big pushback because there was no minority candidates based on the way that they selected their candidates. And so they decided to cancel it altogether. CNN is going to have a debate like May 4th. But that's also when ballots go out. Of course, our primaries in early June, but early voting starts the beginning of May. This is too late. This is too late. We should have had multiple debates in March. And this leaves us to what is happening with Swalwell. Swalwell got into the race, I think, because it was an open race. It was really Katie Porter's race to lose. But based on that video that came out with her yelling at the staffers, and that not being the first instance of people talking about her um, being difficult with her staff, or she had actually burned a lot of bridges among delegates who people who had helped her win her office. And I don't know the details of that, but that's why she didn't really get the delegate vote either. So her numbers, let's say, weren't so strong. And so I believe that gave an opening for Swalwell to come in. As we know, Kamala Harris decided not to enter it whatsoever. So the interesting thing about Swalwell, now I did interview him when I was up at the convention. You could see it, I had posted it. After I did the interview, I heard from another delegate, oh, there's going to be bad stuff that comes out about him. He's evidently had an affair with somebody at a different office, a different politician's office. And so I chose not to endorse him and I chose not to support him. But this was like really rumor. This is like not even a firsthand, not even a secondhand. This was just another delegate that heard that this was going to come out, perhaps by another candidate. Somehow it was going to come out. Of course, this is like what came out was so much worse because he actually had, it seems like at least allegedly, had not only affairs with people who actually worked for him, but also perhaps did it without their consent and rape. And we now have a second person here in Beverly Hills alleging that he raped her. She actually says he drugged her. And then we have, of course, somebody in New York alleging it. She doesn't say that he drugged her, but she implies that it's possible the person in New York. Now, let's just talk about two things with that. I mean, I could go into like the criminal aspect and the legality of what Swalwell is dealing with, but my disappointment with how many people, how many of our elected officials endorsed Swalwell, despite the fact that, I mean, I'm just like a regular delegate, one of 2,000 people. I don't have like inside information. It's not like I'm working on Capitol Hill, but now everyone's saying this was an open secret that I just came to find out about, at this convention, but evidently had been an open secret for years. And the fact that so many high ranking people in our party endorsed him despite that. And it wasn't just, the fact that he had an affairs, which shows maybe his own morality and ethics and makes you question how much he's going to be able to keep his promises to the American people if he can't keep his promise to his wife. But also if he's having these affairs or hitting on people who work for him, I mean, that constitutes sexual harassment and is disqualifying in itself. I mean, a CEO or an executive gets fired over sexual harassment. And so for him to have gotten endorsed by people in our party, the rest of us don't have this kind of inside information. When we hear a politician endorse their colleague, there is a level of believing you have vetted that endorsement and that I can trust that person. And so I think the bigger picture for me is, why did he get that endorsement despite this being so rampantly known? And there was a lot of I saw online a lot where people are like, "Oh, this timing is suspect, this timing is suspect." But the fact is, if this and why did everybody so quickly kind of jump to the believing the women? For one, the CNN article is so thoroughly sourced. If you haven't read that already, definitely read it. I mean, as a former journalist, I was like very impressed with how well they sourced that article. They definitely uh, dotted their I's and crossed the T's. And that is in part, I think, why people believed the women, but also because this was not a surprise. And the fact that it was not a surprise, but he got endorsements from leaders in our party is disturbing to me. It cannot be some boys' club. And not only because, again, the morals and the ethics, but because I'm going to trust that you are going to not violate basic employment laws like sexual harassment in your workplace. We have to deal, or our government has to deal with the most moral and ethical decisions of all times. Are you going to take a vote to send our men and women off to war? Are you going to take a vote because you want to be hired by that lobbyist after? You have to have morals and ethics in order to do the job. Now, in terms of actual legal liability, I've seen a lot of discussion. Some people saying, "Oh, this was adults, consenting adults. Why is he getting, like, what's the big deal? Or he shouldn't be kind of canceled over this as a consenting adult." So let's talk about consent in this arena and talk about it in terms of the law, because the consent in the law, again, in an employment workplace, when you deal with sexual harassment, the assumption is that the imbalance of power of a boss and employee makes consent impossible. This is the whole premise of sexual harassment laws, that you have manipulated your power and are unduly influencing your employee. And it is true that you could have a workplace romance, and most companies have policies of how to go about that, to go to your HR, to, say that you're in this relationship. That way there's a third party, I guess, objective person who can evaluate whether or not this is consenting or not. Now, Congress updated their sexual harassment law in order to try to make it easier and safer for people to come forward. And so that is in place. So right there you have, if anything is being done for somebody who works for you, you have this sexual harassment. Now, that does not rise to a crime, of course. There's instead just civil liability for sexual harassment. But it is very clear in corporate America how serious sexual harassment is. And it should not be less serious because you work for the American people than because you work for stockholders. And that seems to be what a lot of people, leaders, even Democratic leaders, seem to have thought with Swalwell. Now, in terms of criminal liability, consent is also has a definition, and it also can vary by state. The state of New York, being drunk or intoxicated voluntarily does not take away your consent. But in the state of California, it appears that voluntary intoxication can limit whether or not somebody gives your consent. But actually, this person, at least that just gave their press conference, said that it wasn't even voluntary. She said he slipped her something. And if that's the case, then that would even take away informed consent in New York as well. Now, that is hard to prove, of course, of whether or not somebody slipped you something, especially so much after where it's not like you've gotten a blood test to show whether or not you had something in your system other than alcohol. A lot of that gets proved just like any other crime, though, with circumstantial evidence, with who what people saw of you, if you were with your friends and how much they saw you drink or what you told people afterwards. It is a little bit of a he said, she said, and a lot of it will depend upon the circumstances of like what text or photos and evidence that you have. So even if, uh, you know, with this really serious claim of basically being roofied, that is can be proved even if you don't have a drug test, but it becomes a lot harder. It looks like the Manhattan District Attorney is opening up a criminal investigation. We'll wait to see whether or not they do in Los Angeles, but I can't imagine they wouldn't, especially since New York already has, unless they interview that victim or alleged victim and find that they really don't have enough circumstantial support to be able to prove something like that, because it is not necessarily easy. But yes, Robin, never go for drinks alone with a man and never go to their hotel room. Yeah. I mean, it is really too bad. Unfortunately, women have to live in a different society in this country. There's always more risk and more danger for a woman walking down the street or, frankly, doing anything in our lives, which is really too bad. And again, goes to my first point of how disappointed I feel that the Democrats endorsed him despite knowing enough, maybe not knowing all of it, but knowing enough of it. Yes, and Al Franken was canned for so much less. Like, obviously, yes, he really was. And I don't know if you've seen how TMZ is opening up a office in DC, which frankly, to me, when I saw that, I was like, this is Trump's, he's made it complete, turning politics into entertainment. A reality TV star is turning our politics into reality TV. And I see no bigger example of that than having TMZ go to DC, because frankly, nobody cares what Brad Pitt is doing anymore. Like, now people really do just care what politicians are doing. I don't know if that's good or bad, because on the one hand, perhaps it will make it that other people who sexually harass their staffers won't get away with it. That would be a good thing. But then I also want it to get really boring again. I would really not mind waking up believing that I live in a stable and calm democracy so we could all go about our lives and worry about something else. But the fact that TMZ is there, they think for at least the near future that public's interest is not so much entertainment as our politics. I did a live with Brett Meiselas, and he said something that I really has resonated with me, which he said that people are so civic minded now, and that will continue. And if that continues, how much better it is for our country. And I really love that kind of hope and promise. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but in Hungary, where they ousted Orban and had celebration in the streets, which I cannot wait for our celebration. Our celebration will come one day. 80% of their public voted. 80%. If only we had that level of voter participation in this country. So if the TMZ, stalking Lindsey Graham helps increase the number of people who care about our government and care about our politics and vote, hell, I'm all for it. I would be all for that. We need to get a lot more than the percentage that we have now voting. So it's so great. I'm definitely gonna, like I said in the beginning of this, I'm going to definitely do more lives. Um, Love to be able to talk about the community and get us all together. I'll be doing one with Raj on Friday. I am I'm actually gonna be doing something with Adam Mockler on Friday. I don't know if we're doing a live or if I'm doing on his YouTube channel. I did his YouTube channel probably like a year or so ago. He had just done like some amazing, I mean, since then, he's been so fun to watch on that CNN panel. I love how he just takes down everybody. He's a really, really so nice and so smart. And it's really, so that will be fun to talk to him on Friday. And then on Monday, I'm going to be joining the Joy Reid show, which is super fun. I have been a fan of hers since her CNN show. I loved how she just did straight talk, and I'm really excited to join her on that show as well. But in the meantime, I will be doing more Substack Lives, and leave comments. Tell me what you want your other topics to be. I would love to talk about it. Anything you guys want. So hope you have a great rest of your day. Hopefully we can have a little bit of peace before Trump says something crazy. The last I heard was him trying to threaten Cuba militarily on top of this blockade. I just did a video for Midas Touch talking about, the what's happening in Cuba, because Democrats just sent a delegation there, and it is eye-opening. It's horrible, and Trump is just obsessed with war. So anyway, thank you all so much. Looking forward to the next one. See you.